Story 1. The Craigslist Basement Room. I don't know where to start, really. I'm still trying to wrap my head around what happened to me in the fall of 2021. I was 20 at the time, a second-year student at UIC, University of Illinois at Chicago. My dorm lease had run out, and I didn't have the money to renew it. My parents live upstate, but they weren't in a position to help, so I figured I'd just get a cheap sublet or a room on Craigslist until I could get back on my feet. Dumb, I know. But I was desperate. That's how I ended up answering a Craigslist ad for a basement room in Bridgeport. It was listed at $400 a month, all utilities included, and the post said, "Students welcome," with a few grainy photos. The place didn't look like much, but it was clean enough, and the landlord seemed normal enough, at least over text. His name was Mark. That's all I ever got, no last name. We talked over email first, and then he sent me an address to come view the room. The house was old, red brick, tucked at the end of a quiet block, not far from the Sox stadium. The neighborhood had a weird quietness to it. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that felt watched. When I got there, Mark didn't come to the door. Instead, he texted me, "Side door is open. Basement entrance is down." I hesitated, but went around. Sure enough, the side door opened to a narrow stairwell leading directly into the basement. It was dim, smelled like earth and mold, but nothing too crazy. The room itself was actually not bad. Cheap carpet, small bed, a desk, and a single slit of a window at ground level. It was the kind of place you'd expect for the price. I didn't see Mark that day. He said he was upstairs resting. Told me to leave the money and he'd leave the key on the desk. I should have walked then, but again, I was broke. I moved in the next night. The first night was uneventful, but I noticed the basement had strange acoustics. Sounds carried oddly. I'd hear creaks above me, but sometimes they didn't sound like footsteps. It was like dragging, like something heavy being slowly pulled across a wooden floor. I told myself it was old house noises, the kind you get used to, but it wasn't just that. Around the third night, I woke up at 2:46 a.m. to the sound of tapping, slow, methodical tapping on the far wall. I sat up in bed and listened, thinking maybe it was pipes. Then I realized it was coming from inside the wall. It was a hollow wooden sound, like someone knocking faintly but deliberately. I knocked back. Dead silence. Then a second knock, slower, heavier. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight, checking the baseboard and the thin wall near the corner of the room where I'd heard it. There was a faint draft. The wall looked slightly different there. Older drywall, maybe? When I tapped it, it gave a little, almost like there was a pocket of space behind it. But I didn't have tools, and honestly, I was too freaked out to do more in the dark. The next morning, I tried to bring it up with Mark. I texted him, "Hey, just FYI, I think there might be an animal or something in the wall. Heard some knocking." Mark, "Old house, probably rats." That was it. I didn't hear anything the next couple nights. But then, the cold started. It was October, yeah, but this was different. Even with space heaters running, the room dropped to freezing between 2 and 4 a.m. I'd wake up with my breath fogging. I even put a thermometer near the bed once, watched it plummet from 68 to 43 degrees in under an hour. No explanation. The window was shut. I stuffed towels under the door. Nothing worked. Then came the whispering. It happened about a week in. I woke up again at that cursed time, 2:50 something. It was always around then. Only this time, I heard what I thought was a radio. Faint static, broken words. I sat up and listened harder. It was a woman's voice, whispering, "Help. Please. Please help." I grabbed my phone, opened the voice recorder, and hit record. I followed the sound across the room. It wasn't in the air. It wasn't coming from above. It was coming from beneath the bed. I dropped down, expecting to see a speaker or some messed-up prank set up. But there was nothing, just stained carpet and dust. I pulled the bed aside, nothing underneath. The whispering faded the second I did. That's when I noticed something I hadn't before. Right behind where the bed had been, the floorboards looked uneven, just a little raised. I pressed down, hollow. I pried it up with a screwdriver from my backpack. Beneath the floorboard was a narrow cavity, only about 6 inches deep. Inside was a plastic bag. I pulled it out. My hands were shaking. Inside the bag were photos, printed on old Kodak paper, dozens of them, all of people sleeping. Close-up shots, some at odd angles. Most of them were women, some teenagers, some older. And one photo, it was me, taken from above my bed, clearly in this room, clearly while I was asleep. I dropped the bag and backed away. I texted Mark immediately. "Me. What the hell is this? There are photos of me, of other people. You sick bastard." No reply. I ran to the stairs and tried to open the door back into the house. It was locked. I pounded on it. Nothing. I called 911. The line rang, then cut to silence. No dispatcher, just soft static. My phone buzzed. One new message from an unknown number. Unknown. "It's your turn, now." My flashlight flickered. The air grew freezing again. The knocking returned, now louder, frantic, from behind the wall. I pressed my ear to it. This time I heard sobbing, and then something else, scraping, like nails clawing through wood, and a voice, clear, hoarse, almost too faint to believe. "Behind the furnace. Help me." I turned slowly toward the old gas furnace near the far wall. I'd never looked behind it. It was jammed into the corner, but there was just enough space to squeeze past. I crawled back there, heart racing. The smell hit me first. Decay. Something rotting. Behind the furnace was another board. This one had a faint handle carved into it. I pulled. It opened. What I saw inside, I'll tell you, but not now. Because what was inside that wall, and what the police found after, was something no one was ever supposed to find again. Story 2. The Webcam Intruder. I want to preface this by saying, I'm not crazy. I've been called paranoid, sensitive, even too online by friends, but what I lived through, what I survived, no amount of therapy or screen breaks can undo. I live in Seattle. Or, I did live there. This happened in the summer of 2022. My name is Natalie Lynn. I was 27 at the time, working as a graphic designer remotely for a firm based in Portland. It was a quiet life. Nothing special. Just me, my cat Mochi, and a small third-floor apartment near Capitol Hill. I had moved in during the spring, into a pre-war brick building. You know the type. Tall ceilings, creaky floors, old-school charm. I loved it. I really did. The unit was cozy, a bit drafty, but full of light. My landlord, Mitch, was this weird tech hippie hybrid who lived in California and managed the building remotely. He'd bought it as a long-term digital investment. I only ever dealt with him via email. The place was peaceful, until the webcam started blinking. At first, it was small stuff, barely noticeable. I'd be working in Photoshop and the tiny green light next to the camera would flicker on for a split second. Just a blip. My heart would skip a beat, but I'd chalk it up to some app running in the background. I even convinced myself it was Zoom checking permissions or some kind of automated system check. But it didn't stop. The flickers got longer, more frequent, and only at night. Between 1 and 4 a.m., to be exact. I started covering the webcam with a sticky note. That's when I noticed the sound. It was faint, like a low pop or static burst, coming from the speakers, right as the light blinked on, and always while I was lying in bed. My laptop stayed open on my desk, and some nights, when I couldn't sleep, I'd stare at it from across the room, half daring it to blink again. And it would. One night, I watched it stay on for almost a full 10 seconds. That was when I knew something was wrong. I ran virus scans, checked background apps, even brought in my friend Isaac. He's a software engineer, super into cybersecurity. He gave the laptop a clean bill of health, said there was nothing obvious, and suggested I might just be seeing things. He even laughed when I told him it only happened at night. That laugh stopped 2 weeks later when the USB showed up. It came in a plain white envelope, no return address, just my name, handwritten in shaky black ink. No note inside, just a silver USB stick. I plugged it in. Stupid, I know, expecting maybe some spam or prank. But it wasn't that. There were 3 files, all MP4s, a DH with a timestamp, 06-17-20, 22_0311am.mp4, 06-19-20, 22_0243 am.mp4, 06-21-20, 22_0349 am.mp4. I clicked on the first one. The video started in complete darkness. For a few seconds, nothing moved. Then I saw myself, on screen, sleeping. It was me, in my bed, in my apartment. The camera angle was from my laptop. The green light was on. My body shifted under the blanket, totally unaware. The second video was worse. Same thing. Me, sleeping. But halfway through, the video zoomed in. Not digital zoom. It looked like the camera was physically moved closer. The view tilted slightly, just enough to catch a reflection in the mirror across the room. In that reflection, a person, standing, still, in the corner of my room, not moving, just watching me sleep. I dropped the laptop. I couldn't breathe. I started crying, like full-on sobbing. I called Isaac and I couldn't even form sentences. He came over, saw the videos, and went white. Didn't say a word for a full minute. Then he muttered, This is not a prank. Natalie, this is serious." He immediately ran a reverse trace on the metadata embedded in the file. It had an IP address. The IP. It didn't match my own. It belonged to the unit above me. Here's the thing. That apartment. It was empty. Mitch told me when I moved in that the 4th floor had been sealed off for renovations. I had never once heard movement from above. No footsteps, no plumbing, no lights on. Isaac and I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, he convinced me to call the police. They came, took the USB, made a report, and promised to contact the building owner. But they seemed skeptical, asked if I was on anything, if I often got anxious. I could tell they weren't taking me seriously. Just another anxious woman with too much time and a camera. But that night, things got worse. Around 2:30 a.m., my smoke alarm chirped once. No smoke, just a single chirp. Then again, 2 quick beeps. Mochi, my cat, jumped off the bed and hissed, staring straight at the ceiling. That was the first time I heard it. A dragging sound. Above me, slow and deliberate, like someone pulling furniture across the floor. I grabbed my phone, shaking, and texted Mitch. "Me. Is anyone staying above me? I need to know. This is serious." Mitch. No. Fourth floor has been empty since February. I didn't sleep. The next day, Isaac came back with a plan. He had access to a drone camera, one of those slim surveillance types they use for inspections. He figured we could snake it up the building's old laundry chute that connected all the way from the basement to the roof. The chute hatch was in the stairwell. That afternoon, while it was still bright out, we launched it. The first 3 floors were as expected: old pipes, dust, spider webs. Then the drone reached the 4th floor, and what we saw through the feed chilled me to my bones. The apartment was not empty. There was a makeshift room, blankets, wires, a pile of discarded takeout containers, and in the far corner, a laptop, facing downward, with tape residue on the edge where a webcam cover used to be. There was also something else: photos, hundreds of them, taped to the wall. Some were of me, cooking, reading, sitting on the couch. Others, other women, different apartments, different angles. I called the police again. This time I showed them the live feed. They came back, this time with more than just a clipboard. They busted the door down, but no one was there. Just the empty room. The drone had shown everything clearly, yet whoever had been living up there had vanished. No fresh fingerprints, no usable DNA, but the laptop was still there. And when forensics pulled the hard drive, they found years' worth of footage, women all across the city, all with similar builds, all single, all living in older units, likely selected for weak Wi-Fi security and unguarded webcams. Some of them had gone missing. One of them was later identified as a woman named Samantha Klein, reported missing in 2020. Her last known address, a basement studio in Fremont. They never found her body, and one of the videos showed her sleeping, then being approached by a dark figure. The video cut out before anything else could be seen. I moved out the next week. I still see the green light sometimes, in reflections, in my dreams. It's always blinking, always just watching. Even now, when I FaceTime family or log into a meeting, I wonder, who else is watching? The police never caught the person, but I'll never forget the label on the outside of that USB envelope. Faint, almost invisible under black light. One word: watched. And beneath it, you blinked first. Story 3. The TikTok house in the woods. I still check the account sometimes, just to make sure it's still gone. At WitchTalkNC. That was the handle. Stupid name, right? We thought we were being clever. Witch Talk, because we were deep in Appalachia, and everything had that creepy old southern charm. Ghost stories, folk legends, old graveyards. It was supposed to be harmless fun. Just a bunch of 20-somethings trying to go viral. Instead, I lost all 4 of my best friends. And I don't even know how to explain what happened without sounding completely insane. But I have to try, because something in those woods watches people, and it knows when you're filming. My name's Zoe Blake. I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina, but this all happened closer to Boone. Back in late 2021, my college crew rented a cabin for fall break. It was one of those Airbnbs that's trying too hard to be rustic. Wood everywhere, no Wi-Fi, landline phone, antique everything. But we didn't care. We had hotspot data, portable ring lights, and a brand to build. There were 5 of us: me, my boyfriend Leo, our friend Jessa, her brother Dylan, and our wild card Mason, who'd recently blown up for doing creepy story times in costume. We were obsessed with TikTok back then, especially weird local legends. There was a whole series we planned, holler hauntings, just hitting haunted or creepy Appalachian places and trying to make them trend. We'd found the cabin through a weird little subreddit. A guy had posted about an abandoned church and an old doll house deep in the woods where the trees were supposedly cursed. The account was deleted right after the post. That should have been red flag number 1. We didn't even find the place the first day. But the second afternoon, while hiking past the creek behind the cabin, we saw something strange. There was a line of rope tied between trees, way too high up for any animal to reach. On the rope, dolls, little fabric things, some with missing eyes, some wrapped in red string. One had a human tooth sewn into its face. We thought it was art. We filmed it. Jessa walked under the rope, giving this fake spooky monologue about the children of the forest, and Mason did this bit, pretending he heard whispers. It looked amazing on camera, all soft sunlight and horrorcore vibes. The video got 86,000 views overnight. We were thrilled, until we started reading the comments. "That's a spirit rope. Don't walk under it. You filmed in a warded space. That's not for you. Why would you mock the hush line?" Someone DM'd us a single line. "They see you now." We laughed it off, of course. Internet edgelords, right? The second video was the one that went viral. It was Leo and Mason doing a dumb dance in front of a tiny rotted shack deeper in the woods. Jessa had spotted it, half covered in ivy, with bones hanging from the eaves. Chicken bones, we thought. We only realized how strange it was when we looked at the footage later that night. The bones were moving, not swaying, twitching. Frame by frame, you could see them jerk, like something invisible was tugging them. Then there was the symbol, right on the shack door, scratched into the wood. A spiral of faces, dozens of them, all with mouths open in a silent scream. We thought it was graffiti, edgy, rural Satanist nonsense. The second video hit 500,000 views. The comment section turned dark fast. That symbol's called the mouth spiral. Don't film it. Don't show it to others. You're spreading it. Stop, please, for your own good. We didn't stop. The third night is when Mason disappeared. We were filming a nighttime walkthrough, cursed shack at 3 a.m., that kind of thing. Mason was behind the camera, narrating in his usual spooky voice, but halfway through the video he starts sounding off, like he's getting confused mid-sentence. He says something like, "Wait, was someone else just here?" Even though it was just us. The footage ends with him turning toward the woods, walking off frame. He never came back. At first, we thought he was pulling a prank. He was the kind of guy who'd fake his own disappearance for content. But morning came, and still no Mason. His phone was in the cabin. So was his wallet. We called the sheriff's department. They searched with dogs. They brought drones. Nothing. Leo took it hard. He blamed himself, said maybe Mason was trying to outdo him, get solo attention. That night, Leo stayed up watching old videos. I woke up around 3 a.m. and found him just sitting on the porch, pale and silent. He didn't say a word to me, just stared out into the dark woods. The next morning, Leo was gone too. No signs of struggle, just his phone, face down on the porch railing. I opened it. There was a video recording in the drafts, not posted. It was Leo, holding the phone to his face, whispering. They're not dolls, they're eyes. They see you through the trees. They open your face from the inside. I dropped the phone. We packed up, or tried to. Dylan wanted to go back for the shack video, said we had to finish the story arc. I screamed at him, told him we were leaving. I should have forced him into the car. Instead, he took Jessa and went back for one last shoot. Only she came back. Barely. She was covered in scratches, couldn't speak, just rocked back and forth in the back seat. I drove her to the ER in Boone. That's where she finally muttered, "They crawl on the ceiling. They only stop when you post." She wouldn't say another word. That night, the @WitchTalkandSee account posted one final video. I hadn't uploaded it. None of us had. It was a shaky, slow pan inside the shack. Empty. Silent. The camera moves through the doorway, showing symbols all over the walls now. New ones. Names. Ours. Then the camera turns around. Whoever is holding it is in full shadow. But just behind them, a figure crawls across the wall. Fast. Wrong. The final frame is a single eye blinking directly into the lens. Then the account went dark. TikTok took it down. I got subpoenaed by law enforcement. They didn't find any trace of Mason, Leo, or Dylan. The shack. Gone. They brought me back to the site. Trees had grown where the clearing used to be, like it had never existed. Now I live in Asheville. I don't film anymore. Don't even take selfies. But sometimes, when I scroll through random TikToks, I see something strange. A symbol carved into a wall. Faint, but there. A spiral of faces. And I know someone else has walked under the rope, and someone else will blink first. Story 4. The Reddit Hitchhiker. I don't even know how to start this. I've been trying to type this out for weeks, but every time I do, I either break down or delete the whole thing because it sounds too crazy. But after rewatching my dashcam footage for the 100th time, I know I have to get it out. Maybe if someone else reads this, they'll avoid what I didn't. My name's Marcus. I'm 29, a traveling freelance drone videographer. I film stuff like land surveys, real estate properties, nature footage for companies, that sort of thing. I live out of my SUV half the time, just driving from contract to contract. It's lonely, yeah, but peaceful. I've done jobs across the Southwest, and last fall, I got hired to film aerial shots for a solar farm near Tonopah, Nevada. If you've never been through that part of the country, picture an ocean of tan nothingness, the kind of place where the sky's too big and the roads seem to go on forever with no sign of civilization. Beautiful in a strange way, but dead silent. You don't see many people out there, maybe a trucker or two, a dead rabbit every few miles. The wind is the loudest thing around. Anyway, I was on my way back from the shoot, heading toward Reno. Long stretch of highway, late afternoon sun starting to drop behind the mountain ridges. That's when I saw him. A man, standing on the side of the road. Not waving, not walking, just standing. Thumb not even out. I should have kept going. But something about him. He looked wrong. Not injured exactly, but like someone who had been walking for a long time in the heat. Dust-covered jeans, a dirty olive green hoodie with the hood up, and he had this big, beat-up army-style duffel bag slung over his back. What made me stop, I think, was the way he was pointing. Not toward me, just ahead. Like he was waiting for something to come down the road and just wanted to be taken there. No sign, no words, just the outstretched hand. So I pulled over. I rolled the passenger window down a bit and leaned over. "Hey, you all right? Need a ride?" The guy nodded slowly, never looking me in the eye. His hood stayed up the whole time. Didn't say a word, just walked over to the passenger side door, stood there for a second, and then opened it. Climbed in, slid the bag between his legs. still pointing ahead. I felt this weird jolt of unease, something primal, but I told myself he's just a quiet guy, maybe traumatized or something. I was halfway convinced he might be a vet. I kept the dash cam running, like I always do, front and rear facing. He didn't speak for the entire ride, 45 miles at least, just sat there silently, never turned his head, never looked out the side windows, just straight ahead, breathing quietly. The only sound he made was this occasional, almost inaudible murmur, like he was whispering to himself under his breath. But it didn't sound like words, more like counting. At some point, I tried making conversation. "Where you headed?" "Nothing." "You all right, man? You in trouble or something?" Still nothing. Then about 15 miles outside of Silver Springs, he reached into his hoodie and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper, handed it to me. I unfolded it with one hand while driving. 3 words, handwritten, "Check your back seat." I slammed the brakes. Heart pounding, I twisted around to look. Empty. Nothing back there. Just my gear bags and cooler. When I turned to ask him what the hell that was about, he was already outside the car. I never even heard the door open. He was walking away, calmly, into the brush toward the horizon. The sun was lower now, casting this insane orange glow across the flat land, and he just disappeared into it. Didn't turn back, didn't wave, just vanished into the desert. I drove off, fast. My brain couldn't handle how surreal it all felt. I didn't stop until I got to a gas station near Dayton, parked under bright lights, got out, checked the back seat again, then under the seats, under the car, in the hatchback. Nothing. I told myself he was just a weirdo, probably some local playing a prank or a guy with issues, but the whole encounter felt off. It didn't feel like a prank. I started having nightmares that night. Dreams where I was driving endlessly down that highway, but I couldn't see the road. It was pitch black, and all I could hear was someone breathing behind me. Then things got worse. 3 days later, I got home to Reno. I went through my dashcam footage to back it up. I was mostly checking for scenery clips, but when I reached the part where I picked up the guy, I noticed something. Something was off with the shadows in the back seat. I paused the footage, enhanced it. There was movement. Not from the hitchhiker, from behind the driver's seat. I scrubbed forward, frame by frame. That's when I saw it. At 1943 on the video, a shape moved. Just a twitch, like something shifted under the blanket that was folded on my back seat. I zoomed in, enhanced again. There was a hand sticking out, pale, thin, fingernails like claws. It pulled the blanket further over itself. I checked the footage from the entire ride. That shape was there the whole time. Not once did it move more than an inch or two, but it was there. Hidden, breathing, under the blanket. I called the cops, showed them the footage. They inspected my car, took a report. But by then it was too late. Whoever, or whatever, that was, they were long gone. No fingerprints, no DNA, nothing missing, nothing added, except the note. I still had it in my glove compartment. They took it into evidence. A week later, the detective on the case left me a voicemail. Said they'd seen something like this before. Once, years ago. Another driver, another highway, different state. Same note, same story. Dashcam footage showed a silent man pointing ahead, and someone else, unmoving, breathing, in the back seat. That driver was never found. Neither was his car. The detective told me in this flat voice, "You were lucky. I've never felt lucky since. I don't drive at night anymore. I check my car every time I get in, every mirror, every corner. I haven't picked up a hitchhiker since, and never will. But sometimes I'll be on the road, and I'll see someone on the shoulder, hood up, pointing ahead, and I know he's still out there, looking for someone else to drive him home. Story 5. I was watching my friend's live stream when he froze and whispered, "Don't turn around." He hasn't been seen since. I guess this is my way of getting it off my chest, or maybe just warning people. Either way, it's the only thing I can do now that everything else has failed. I've emailed, called, even gone to his apartment. Nothing. No trace of him. Just that headset. Still powered on. Still whispering. My name's Caleb. I live in Austin, Texas. I work in IT. Boring stuff. But I've always been part of the online gaming and streaming scene. And that's how I met Jonah. Jonah Reeds, or as he was known on Twitch, Reed Runner. He wasn't a big name, not yet, but he was rising. Funny, laid back, smart dude with a knack for horror games. He'd grown from like 500 to 10,000 followers in just a couple of months, and we all thought he was on the brink of going full-time. I was one of his mods, helped manage his chat, flag bots, that kind of thing. That night, October 14th, 2024, was when it all started. Jonah was streaming late, later than usual. He'd told me he was doing a Midnight Screams special, where he'd play a lesser-known horror game someone had emailed him. No name, just an attachment and a message that said, "Play with headphones, play alone, do not turn around." He laughed it off, said it was probably some indie ARG stuff, but I noticed something different from the start. He looked tired, office shadows under his eyes, like he hadn't slept in days. But he kept joking, kept his tone light. The stream began with him chatting a bit, sipping a Monster, then booting up the game. It didn't have a title screen, just loaded straight into what looked like a dark room with a flickering candle. Basic graphics. He joked about it being a slender clone and walked his character around. That's when chat started commenting. "Bro, what was that whisper? Yo, rewind. Someone just said something. I swear I heard 'don't turn around.'" At first, Jonah laughed it off. Said, "That's the game, right? Creepy ambiance, sound design." But the more he played, the more the whispers continued. I went back on the VOD. There was a voice. It wasn't from the game's audio. It was behind his mic. Software. Female. Whispering directly into his ear. It didn't sound like words at first. More like humming. Breathy. But around the 26-minute mark, it clearly said, "Jonah, don't look behind you." I typed into mod chat, "Dude, are you playing a prank? This is insane." He didn't respond. Instead, he paused the game, looked dead into the camera, and said, "That wasn't from the game." He turned down the game volume to prove it. The whisper was still there, getting louder. Chat went nuts. "Bro, nuke your PC. I'm out. This is demonic. Why is it whispering your name now?" Then Jonah stopped. His face turned pale, like all the blood had drained. His eyes were locked on something just past the camera. To his right, just over the monitor's edge. You could see it in his pupils. Something moved. He didn't scream, didn't say anything at all. He just whispered, barely audible, "Don't turn around." Then, click. The stream ended. No warning, no outro, no thank you for watching. Just darkness. I tried calling him immediately. No answer. His Discord status went idle. VOD didn't save. Nothing but what was left in RAM on a few of our systems. from viewers who were still watching when it cut. The next morning, I drove to his place. He lived in a small apartment complex in East Austin, near the river. 1 bedroom, cheap but modern. His car was parked out front, door locked. I knocked. Nothing. I called again. No voicemail, no ringing, just dead silence. That's when I noticed something. His window, the one facing the alley, had a black smear on the inside of the glass. It looked almost like soot or ash, but in the shape of a handprint. 5 long fingers, spread wide, dragging upward toward the ceiling. I called the police. They showed up an hour later. Apartment was unlocked from the inside. No sign of forced entry, no struggle. Everything was still there. Clothes, wallet, phone on the desk. Game still running on the monitor. Frozen on that same candle-lit room. But Jonah was gone. Only thing out of place was his headset. Still plugged in. Sitting in the middle of the floor, whispering. Not through speakers. The headset itself. The cop who picked it up said he could feel a hum through it. He held it for 2 seconds and immediately dropped it. "Something's wrong with that," he said. They brought in an audio tech. He tried recording it. Got nothing. Said the mic wasn't even active. No output signal. Yet, everyone in the room could still hear it whispering. Software. Breathless. "Don't turn around." That's the last anyone ever heard of Jonah. Police found no signs of foul play, no forced entry, no trace of a break-in or attack. He just vanished, like smoke. I posted the story to Reddit. At first, people called it fake, ARG marketing. But then others started commenting. They'd seen it too. Streamers from Canada, Argentina, even Japan said they'd received a game like that. Sometimes from an anonymous email, sometimes from a USB left in their mailbox. Every time, it came with the same instructions. Play alone, play with headphones, don't turn around. A few never streamed again. One guy from Arizona posted about how he heard his mother's voice in the headset, but his mom had died years ago. Another claimed his headset melted after the stream ended. I wish I was making this up. I tracked the IP of the email Jonah had received. It didn't trace back to a location, just bounced through hundreds of servers until it landed on one address, Jonah's. Like the message came from his own apartment, before he even received it. I don't know what that means. I'm not even sure if this thing is digital, or something worse. Something older, just using tech to reach us now. I do know one thing. I kept the headset. I shouldn't have. Even unplugged, it sometimes hums. And at night, on the edge of sleep, I hear it. Software, almost kind. A whisper. "You're next."